15 a.m., April 21st, 2026, Buckingham Palace. A tradition that has endured for almost 100 years was just quietly broken. Normally, the sovereign's red box, the daily bundle of state documents, is placed directly on the king's private desk. But 2 days earlier, that box was rerouted. Under tight security, it was sent instead to the office of the Lord Chamberlain. This wasn't a simple administrative slip. It marked a constitutional turning point. While most of the world slept, the process to reshape the British line of succession was officially set in motion. Reports now suggest that King Charles III has signed off on a document that could redefine everything for the House of Sussex. If the divide seemed serious before, what unfolded inside Room 1844 may change the narrative entirely. Before we step into the confidential details of Project Silver, make sure to like the video and subscribe. Events are unfolding quickly, and you'll want to catch every update the moment it drops. Let us know in the comments, should a monarch really hold the authority to alter a child's birthright? We're reading every response. Over the past 48 hours, Montecito has remained unusually quiet. Sources close to Meghan Markle indicate that her silence doesn't signal calm, but rather complete shock. One insider described the moment the news reached California, claiming Meghan was seen walking the grounds of her estate, gripping her phone, repeatedly telling her legal team, he cannot do this. It violates everything we were promised. Yet, according to documents currently circulating in London, not only can he act, he already has. The center of this unfolding situation lies in room 1844 at Buckingham Palace. Typically reserved for hosting distinguished guests, it transformed into a closed-door legal command center for 6 hours on Tuesday. No aides were present, no phones were allowed. Inside were only the king, Prince William, and senior legal advisors from the Crown estate. Their focus: a single file known as Project Silver. Project Silver is the internal code name for a 26th Amendment to the letters patent. To understand its significance, you have to consider the legal structure. A monarch cannot simply remove someone from the line of succession on impulse. That would require parliamentary action. However, the monarch does retain full authority over the letters patent. These legal instruments determine who is recognized as a prince or princess and who qualifies as a legitimate heir under the current framework of the royal house. By redefining what constitutes active royal status, the king has effectively constructed a legal barrier. One court official reportedly described the moment, saying the king reviewed the draft, lifted his fountain pen, and remarked, "The institution must outlast the individuals, regardless of personal cost." The immediate outcome: a formal recommendation has been submitted to the Privy Council aiming to bypass standard succession protocols for royals permanently residing outside the UK. This step acts as the trigger. It draws on a precedent over a century old, arguing that royal titles and succession rights are not just inherited privileges, but duties tied to service. As of April 23rd, the Sussex legal team is reportedly approaching a deadline to respond. The palace has drawn a firm line. Behind closed doors, this move is being seen as a decisive conclusion. Tensions escalated further when a reported account from a palace aide surfaced, describing a brief and distant phone call between London and California. The aide characterized the king's tone as precise and unyielding. When Prince Harry allegedly asked if negotiation was possible, the reply came in a single cutting line: "The crown is a duty, not a luxury brand." Meghan's reaction, according to those within her circle, has been described as overwhelming, not in the sense of losing control, but in the intensity of her anger over losing leverage. Without titles and succession status for Archie and Lilibet, the commercial strength of the Sussex brand could face a significant decline. At this stage, it's no longer just a family dispute. It has evolved into a state-level strategy aimed at shielding the monarchy from external commercialization. What you're witnessing may be the most substantial shift in the British royal line in over a decade. The king hasn't simply made a move, he's altered the entire framework of the game. Stay with us as we reveal the next phase of Project Silver. Your support keeps you informed ahead of everyone else. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. The next chapter of this story is closer than you think. To understand why the king signed the suspension order today, we need to trace a trail of digital and legal developments going back more than 6 years. This wasn't a sudden reaction. It was a slow, deliberate calculation that reached its peak this morning. The path to this moment is marked by broken protocols and missed chances for resolution. The unraveling began on January 8th, 2020 at Sandringham House. The public came to know it as Megaset, but within palace walls, it carried a far more serious label, the Great Breach. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced their decision to step back from royal duties, the first immediate consequence was the withdrawal of taxpayer-funded security. The signal from the crown was measured yet unmistakable. Once you step outside the institution, its protection no longer extends to you. The first major rupture came on March 7th, 2021, during the widely watched interview from Montecito with Oprah Winfrey. That broadcast marked a turning point, transforming a private family issue into a global public relations battle. Allegations of internal racism didn't just stir controversy, they raised concerns about the stability of the Commonwealth itself. One senior courtier later remarked that Queen Elizabeth II saw the interview not as a call for understanding, but as a direct challenge. From that point onward, relations shifted from strained to openly adversarial. By January 10th, 2023, any remaining hope for quiet reconciliation disappeared with the release of Spare. The book became the decisive blow. By revealing private disputes and deeply personal conversations involving Prince William, Harry didn't just share his perspective, he crossed a line that many within the institution consider essential for its survival: constitutional privacy. The gates of Windsor, metaphorically speaking, weren't just shut, they were sealed. The situation took a more serious turn on February 5th, 2024, when King Charles III health concerns became public. That moment shifted priorities inside the palace. In the internal contingency plans, often referred to as a Project Bridges, were accelerated with full attention placed on securing the line of succession. Within the king's inner circle, there was growing concern that a distant and unpredictable branch of the family in California, retaining royal status while criticizing the institution, posed a long-term strategic risk that a future reign under William should not inherit. The tension evolved from personal conflict into a commercial issue on June 15th, 2025. In California, Meghan reportedly launched a high-end lifestyle brand seeking major investment. The branding leaned heavily on her Duchess title. From the perspective of Buckingham Palace, this crossed a critical boundary. Leveraging a royal title granted by the sovereign to build a private commercial enterprise abroad was viewed as turning the monarchy itself into a marketable asset. The legal phase began on New Year's Day 2026. Behind closed doors in British Parliament, the Titles Deprivation Amendment Act was expedited. Its purpose was precise: to provide the monarch with the legal mechanisms needed to remove titles from individuals deemed to be acting against national interests. The Sussex position weakened further just weeks ago when the High Court rejected Harry's final appeal for police protection. That decision removed a key layer of institutional support. Now we arrive at April 23rd, 2026. The king has formally signed an order suspending all styles and honors associated with the Sussex branch. Years of mounting tension have led to this decisive moment, but as royal status fades, a pressing question emerges. Without the backing of the monarchy and with their commercial influence diminished, how will the Sussexes respond to being effectively sidelined? The next move in this high-stakes constitutional standoff is already taking shape behind the scenes in Montecito. Removing your royal heir isn't a simple act. It's a structural shift. To fully grasp the magnitude of today's events, one must understand what insiders describe as a three-tiered legal framework and authority staircase, quietly set in motion by the king. Yet at the base of this structure lies perhaps the most consequential document in modern royal history, the 2026 Letters Patent, specifically Draft 4. For months, speculation surrounded a possible revision to the framework originally set by King George V in 1917. Now, it appears that Draft 4 introduces a fundamentally new definition of what it means to be a working royal. Under this updated approach, the titles of prince or princess are no longer guaranteed by birth alone. Instead, they become conditional honors, dependent on active service to the crown. The document reportedly outlines that individuals living permanently outside the United Kingdom and not fulfilling a required level of royal duties may have their titles suspended. In practical terms, this reframes Archie and Lilibet not as future working royals, but as private citizens without a constitutional role tied to the sovereign. Moving up to the second level of this legal structure, enforcement comes into play through two of the UK's most historic institutions, the Privy Council and the College of Arms. The Privy Council has reportedly been called into a special session to formalize changes related to royal titles and peerage. At the same time, the College of Arms has been tasked with reviewing whether the Sussex coat of arms remains valid under the new criteria. This isn't just symbolic. It's the machinery of the monarchy being recalibrated in real time. Within royal protocol, recognition by the College of Arms is everything. If your lineage no longer appears in its official registers, your title effectively loses its legal substance. One official reportedly summed it up bluntly. A title without formal recognition is like a canceled passport. It may appear valid, but it won't grant entry into the realm of legitimacy. The final and most consequential tier of this framework lies with Parliament. While the monarch oversees titles, the line of succession itself is controlled by statutory law. This brings us to the Succession to the Crown Act 2013. Legal analysts are focusing on Clause 2, which addresses the principle of absolute allegiance. Under this provision, any individual in the line of succession who acts in a way considered harmful to the constitutional integrity of the monarchy can be referred parliamentary review. By asserting that the Sussexes failed to uphold this allegiance through external commercial activities and the disclosure of sensitive internal matters, King Charles III has effectively handed Parliament the justification it needs to intervene. This is the decisive lever of power. With evidence of a breach presented, the House of Commons can move to formally alter the succession order, bypassing the Sussex branch entirely. According to sources tied to Project Silver, an allegiance audit concerning Prince Harry and his children was finalized on April 15th. With reportedly unanimous findings. At this stage, the king is no longer acting in a personal capacity. He is operating as the steward of an institution that has endured for centuries, making calculated decisions to secure its future. As these three levels of authority align, the Sussex position appears increasingly constrained, caught in what can only be described as a legal vacuum. The question is no longer whether their status will change, but what follows when one of the world's most recognizable princes is left without formal standing in the system that defined him. To the public, it may look like a family in conflict. But internally, the process resembles a precise and methodical operation. The king's approach is not emotional. It follows a structured 4-step strategy designed to neutralize what is perceived as a long-term institutional risk. This is how a monarch can remove even close family members from the national framework without public confrontation. The first stage, financial separation. Based on internal palace records, this phase is already complete. By cutting off access to the sovereign grant and ensuring that no funding from the Duchy of Cornwall reaches California, the monarchy has effectively withdrawn its financial support. In high-level power dynamics, removing funding also removes influence. Without resources, visibility and leverage diminish rapidly. The second stage focuses on limiting the use of royal styling. As of April 23rd, a global cease and desist directive has reportedly been prepared regarding the use of Her Royal Highness. This acts as a commercial cutoff point. By activating this rarely used protocol, the monarchy restricts the use of royal titles in profit-generating ventures. One insider from the Lord Chamberlain's office described it as a form of a strategic decapitation. Without the HRH designation, the Sussex brand loses much of its appeal to investors, turning what was once a powerful symbol into something largely ceremonial. The third stage may be the most intricate legal maneuver within Project Silver, the residency requirement. Under a new interpretation of updated royal protocols for 2026, individuals in the line of succession must spend at least 183 days each year within the United Kingdom. This 183-day rule becomes a decisive factor. Since Archie and Lilibet reside full-time in Montecito, they fall short of this requirement. Their absence effectively activates what is being referred to as a vacancy clause. In this framing, the king isn't stripping away their birthright. He is acknowledging that it has been relinquished through non-residency. One circulating legal summary puts it plainly. The crown cannot exist in absentia for those who do not live within its realm. The fourth and final stage moves the matter beyond the palace and into government authority. Parliamentary reclassification. This is the most strategic shift. By reframing the issue from a private family disagreement into one of national stability, the decision becomes insulated from media narratives. Concerns about an uncertain or externally influenced line of succession are now reportedly being presented to lawmakers as a structural risk to the state. When the Home Secretary eventually addresses the House of Commons, the focus won't be on personal disputes. It will center on continuity, governance, and the long-term security of the United Kingdom itself. This 4-stage strategy has effectively surrounded the House of Sussex with a legal void. Financially restricted, commercially diminished, disqualified by residency rules, and now politically sidelined, the structure is complete. The system is in motion, and there's no sign of it slowing. Yet just as this calculated process approaches its conclusion, a new and potentially volatile factor has entered the picture. Reports have begun to surface about a late-night release of documents at a prominent London law firm suggesting the Sussexes may have anticipated this outcome long before it unfolded. If the king is wielding the law as a weapon, Meghan may be preparing to counter with disclosure as her defense. The looming question now is simple. When morning comes, who makes the first move? While public discussion continues around the morality of royal succession, developments on the ground in both London and California point to something far more coordinated already underway. This is no longer a theoretical legal issue. It's an active exercise of influence and control. To understand just how decisive this shift may be, we need to examine what's taken place behind closed doors over the last 48 hours. At exactly 2:0 a.m. on April 22nd, London time, a single black Range Rover reportedly entered through the rear gates of Buckingham Palace. Instead of heading toward Clarence House or any royal residence, it sped directly to the offices of Harbottle and Lewis. For those familiar with its reputation, this firm is not associated with ceremonial matters. It specializes in high-level legal defense, particularly in reputation management and intellectual property. The timing is telling. Moving at that hour minimizes attention from both media and royal watchers. Sources indicate that a senior representative from the king's household remained inside for roughly 4 hours, finalizing the legal cease and desist actions that are now reportedly being delivered to the Sussex legal team. That activity in London appeared to have an almost immediate ripple effect across the Atlantic. Later that same day in Santa Barbara, Meghan Markle was seen at a restaurant, but the scene described by witnesses was far from composed. She reportedly wasn't eating, instead leaning over a dark encrypted mobile device. Observers noted that she appeared unsettled, unusually pale, and intensely focused as she typed. The device itself is a notable detail. This wasn't an ordinary phone. It was described as a secure communication tool typically used in sensitive legal exchanges. That suggests she may have been receiving early drafts or updates related to the king's orders in real time, watching developments unfold as decisions made in London began taking shape digitally. Perhaps the most striking element, however, is a document said to have been seen by a palace staff member during the final stages of Project Silver. The file, a 12-page memorandum, reportedly lays out in precise and technical language the reasoning behind formally archiving the Sussex branch within the constitutional framework. But more significant than the content itself is what appears at the bottom of the final page: 2 signatures. Alongside the mark of King Charles III sits the signature of Prince William. Within royal protocol, a joint authorization between the reigning monarch and the heir carries enormous weight. It signals complete alignment, not just in the present, but for the future of the crown. For Prince Harry, it would indicate that there is no expectation of reversal under a future reign. In effect, this document represents more than a policy. It reflects a unified position between 2 generations of leadership. The coordination is precise, legal strategy being executed in London, realization unfolding in California, and long-term continuity confirmed through that dual signature. The Sussexes are not confronting a single authority. They're facing a consolidated front representing both the current monarchy and its successor. As April 23rd, 2026 unfolds, the atmosphere feels weighted with finality. The reported late-night legal movements in London and Meghan's visible reaction in California appear to be 2 ends of the same tightening chain. With each passing hour, the contents of that encrypted communication grow more significant. What exactly was delivered through those files that could provoke such a reaction? The answer may lie in discussions reportedly taking place within Windsor Castle, where officials are said to be preparing for multiple possible outcomes. As May 2026 approaches, the House of Windsor is bracing for 3 distinct scenarios, each pointing toward a very different future for the monarchy, though only one aligns fully with the strategic path set in motion by the king. The first scenario, referred to by insiders as the nuclear option, represents the most extreme outcome. In this version, the pressure created by the suspension of titles becomes a breaking point, driving a final and irreversible divide between the Duke and Duchess. Faced with the potential loss of both his identity and his children's inherited status, Prince Harry could, in theory, be pushed toward a calculated separation in order to preserve what remains of his position. In response, Meghan Markle might deploy her most powerful leverage: private recordings from their time as working royals, conversations never intended to leave palace grounds. Such a development would escalate into an all-out conflict, leaving lasting damage on both the monarchy and the Sussex brand alike. The second possible outcome is what insiders describe: as the frozen line. In this scenario, Archie and Lilibet are not formally removed from the succession, but instead placed into a kind of ceremonial suspension. Their positions would be pushed to the far end of the line, behind even the children of Princess Eugenie and other distant branches of the family. Their titles would remain inactive until adulthood, at which point they would need to formally pledge allegiance to King Charles III and meet residency requirements in the United Kingdom to restore them. It would amount to a slow administrative form of exclusion rather than an outright removal. The third and widely considered most probable scenario is what's being called a silent erasure. This reflects a long-standing royal approach, maintaining stability through discretion rather than confrontation. Rather than issuing a dramatic public statement or engaging in a visible legal battle, the king is expected to act quietly. The change would become apparent in an upcoming royal decree, potentially tied to Easter, where the names of Archie and Lilibet would simply no longer appear on the official register of the royal household. In the structure of the monarchy, absence from official documentation carries significant meaning. If a name is omitted, it effectively signals that the individual no longer holds recognized standing within the institution. This method, removal without announcement, allows the crown to achieve its objective without public conflict. Why favor the silent approach? Because historically, the monarchy has endured by practicing restraint. It avoids open disputes, opting instead to withdraw recognition. It doesn't argue publicly, it simply closes ranks. By excluding the Sussex branch from formal records, their royal identity becomes largely symbolic. Something that may persist in media narratives but carries no institutional authority within places like Palace of Westminster. However, even the most carefully structured plan can face disruption. As this report comes together on April 23rd, new and unsettling information has emerged from a source connected to Frogmore Cottage, the former Sussex residence. During a final inspection of the property, a high-security data drive was reportedly discovered, now being referred to as the Windsor tape. These materials are said to contain recordings and documents dating back to 2018, potentially pointing to a private agreement that could challenge the legal standing of the 2026 amendments. The implications are significant. Could Meghan be preparing to release this information strategically, perhaps timed around the king's upcoming coronation anniversary? Or might it serve as leverage in negotiations behind the scenes? At this point, the stability of the succession itself may hinge on timing, on who chooses to act first. If you found this breakdown insightful, consider liking the video. Your engagement helps bring more of these in-depth analyses forward. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next investigation into the so-called Windsor tapes. And share your thoughts below. Do you see the king as safeguarding the institution or acting with excessive severity? The discussion is far from over. Stay with us because the real battle over the future of the crown may only just be beginning.